without further ado, I would like to introduce Katie Yellow with What's Up Downtown.
Hi, guys. Good evening. Thanks so much for staying on or joining us for this other half. I really appreciate any opportunity to take this word that a lot of us actually know and practice and just break it down and make sure you leave this evening really knowing what placemaking is, how to do it in your neighborhood, and then what it looks like in your city center. Um, so, just to start off, I just want to let you guys know I'm going to define placemaking the way that I practice and implement it. But you've got to keep in mind that this is a big word and it's practiced and defined differently depending on the place that you're making and depending on who's leading it and doing the activity. So to start off, I want to define it. And then I'm going to tell you a little bit about who I am in this new position, what the position's responsible for. And then I'm going to break down the components of placemaking and give you good examples to really understand what this means. Tell you a little bit about placemaking opportunities in your neighborhood, and then just wrap up with a short activity. So to start, I think a really great way to define placemaking is breaking it down into its three elements, which is people, places, and programming. And so oftentimes we build great places or great buildings or parks or spaces, and we don't think of the intricate and important process to program that space, bring it to life, and ultimately start the process of community engagement, space ownership and management, and really getting people to interact with their environments. So apologize, I got the slide change on my cell phone. Here it is. So just a little bit about who I am, how I got into placemaking, and what my position is, just so that's clear. So placemaking is a movement that started in the 70s. Two urban planners essentially were saying the way to build the best cities is to make sure they have really bright, accessible public spaces. At that time, it was the city square or the center, or kind of what you see in campus marches in Detroit was the plan in the 70s. And then we saw a huge spike in placemaking in 2008 during the housing crisis, when President Obama at the time essentially said, we're going to invest in place. We're in the spaces and cities that we're at, and so it's time to pay attention. And you're actually seeing a huge eruption of the language and things around placemaking with COVID, because the tools are so important to reimagine our streets and outdoor spaces and how we gather. So I got into placemaking because I was just like you and a lot of residents in Flint, and I cared a lot about my street, my neighborhood, my city. And so as a young woman, I was leading neighborhood cleanups and park projects. Excuse me for a second, little issue with the slides. I was leading neighborhood and park projects and really just trying to make the city I lived in a really great place. And so very early on, I got involved with placemaking just out of passion. And then I ended up taking it more seriously as I was kind of taking on bigger placemaking projects. So going from a neighborhood cleanup to throwing a festival on a riverfront. With that, I was recruited to Flint about a year ago, a little bit over a year ago, to lead the placemaking process for your city center. So I'll talk a little bit more about the project later, but essentially my position is to manage placemaking resources. So to bring in funding and leverage relationships and partnerships to make the activation of public spaces in downtown smooth and possible, and also to be able to, secondly, maintain and manage our public spaces in downtown and make sure they're being programmed. So again, I'm going to always bring back that people, places, programming model and approach to this work. And then lastly, I am responsible for making sure that we have a calendar so that everyone kind of knows the activities that are going on. You can imagine that moving here and the pandemic starting certainly shifted how we gather and pretty much the size of the gatherings, and also just taking on considerations for PPE and social distancing. So I'm just going to show a couple of placemaking projects that I've done previously to prepare me to teach this evening, and show you some skills or show you some ways to approach placemaking in your neighborhood. So what you're looking at here, and this will also really be great examples of pairing people, places, and programming in a way that makes you better understand what this is. So in my hometown in upstate New York, we have a really beautiful waterfront. It's kind of similar to Flint, Michigan in that it's beautiful and accessible, but underutilized. And so my position as a young woman in a once abandoned Main Street is I took the lead to activate this space. And so as a commissioner for downtown development, I was able to bring the community together. And what you see here is just a simple stage with a musician and band on it and some chalk art along, which led to more revitalization. What I hope placemaking will eventually do in your community and in downtown is have a ripple effect where people begin to more and more take ownership over their environments and make them positive, healthy places to gather. So here is actually a really great example of how that was successful. Since people didn't have to imagine what riverfront activation would look like, once I held that chalk art festival and the music festival, you saw this residual work being done where others felt an ownership, a sense of engagement with the place, and started using it a lot more. Here's another example of placemaking I did. So I got very interested in this field and I wanted to practice in different communities and different sizes with different demographics. I ended up in Alaska in a small town called Homer. Their main street, which often is where I focus placemaking, is on a main street. It's called Pioneer Ave, and their celebration is the peony flower. That's a big part of their economy. So I helped them implement a placemaking public art project where they put murals along their main street to make it feel more like a corridor, add vibrancy, add color, and be able to celebrate their economy. What was really great about that was I was later brought into Anchorage to do similar work, and that's what's shown in that second photo there. Then I decided to take this very seriously, and I went to grad school and earned a master's in the management of art and culture. And that landed me in Galway, Ireland on the western coast. And what you're seeing here is a really ambitious placemaking project. So Ayr Square is their city center. It's their flat lot, if you will. It's a big, wide open space. It had never been permitted for kind of mixed use or activities. It was really almost a dead zone in their center of their city. So my project was to mixed use permit, and we did a really fun project called the People Build. The whole city came together, and hundreds of people essentially built a life-size building out of cardboard. So this is a really great example of placemaking. You've got the people, the program is People Build, and the space is city center. So it pairs those three things, and people have a much more meaningful experience of their city center after this day moving forward. So again, those are just a few examples of some of the larger projects I've taken on in the past. And I want to move forward and start to share examples with you from Flint. So again, I really want to hone in on the message that placemaking is pairing people with a place and a program. So I'm here in Flint running the What's Up Downtown project. It is a placemaking project that is in some way restricted to the downtown Flint footprint. In terms of that, I'll explain more later, but essentially it's a project that's meant to put the city of Flint through a very detail-oriented, time-consuming placemaking process. So instead of just offering events and activities that we imagine are the type of things that people want to see in their public spaces in downtown, adding placemaking adds a community engagement component where we engage residents to help design the activities. And then in this position, I'm able to help implement them. So breaking down people, places, and programming for the What's Up Downtown project. The people that I'm hoping to bring into City Center more or for the first time or in new ways are Flint residents, families and neighbors. You can start to target demographics like faith-based organizations, your creative class, your artists, musicians, poets. I see there's whole groups around athleticism and healthy living, affinity groups, etc. The university college students is also a group. Just like you, I have spaces and places in downtown to activate. The parks and green spaces, sidewalks, vacant lots, parking structure, and streets are all great places to program and pair people with. In downtown, the spaces that I'm trying to activate are Brush Park, where the blue Flint letters are, Riverbank Park, which is shown in a sketch down there, the flat lot, and then the alleys, Brush Alley and Buckham Alley. So I'm sure you all have equivalent spaces in your neighborhood or street. That would be great to hold an event, a pop-up, or an activity. Again, it could be your parks, it could be a street closure, or a sidewalk. There's a lot of room to socially gather in interesting and new ways and using space in ways that we otherwise normally wouldn't intuitively think to approach. And programs can be a number of things. It depends on what the community and interest is. It can be markets for vendors, concerts for the community members, just getting together and playing a bunch of board games or playing kickball, walking tours, building things together. There's no shortage of ideas for programs. I'll show you a few of the programs we put on just to make sure that's more clear of what kind of activities institute placemaking. So just to further break down people, places, and programming through the What's Up Downtown project in your city center, I typically address placemaking by including the creative class. So including individuals with talent locally. So the culture bearers, the entrepreneurs, the producers, the performers, those for me are the individuals and people that I hope to program with in these public spaces. For me, the places, as you know, are the flat lot, the streets, the sidewalks, the alleys. And for me, the programs will be a collection of pop-ups. So the What's Up Downtown project doesn't put on big events or really big festivals, even pre-COVID, that never was the plan. Our role really is to fill the gap in a normal year in Flint, Michigan, when you have all of these larger festivals and activities. What about the winter? Or what about gap times? Or what about small events where just a few hundred people gather? That really is the scope of our work and our programs. What's really great is even though placemaking isn't a word that we all know and use every day, it's actually a huge part of life here in Flint, Michigan. It's a deep-rooted tradition. So even though my position is new, the process or the presence of placemaking is not. So there's a few nationally recognized placemaking projects that may help make this more familiar to you, like the Porch Project or the murals to the Flint Public Art Project, or the marketing and events being done by Beats by Beers, are all nationally recognized programs coming out of Flint, Michigan doing this type of work. Or even something a little bit closer to home to you guys, like the Neighborhood Engagement Hub, the Latinx Technology Center, Eastside Park, King Ave Garden Project. Those are all super local, great examples of placemaking. So I wanted to put those on to make sure to just remind you, or in the spirit of knowing that this is not a foreign concept or term or process. This is almost a lifestyle here in Flint, Michigan, to be placemakers. So something I really wanted you to leave with tonight, or enhance your understanding of, is how to bring programming into your neighborhood, to your street, or to your community. So I think a really great way to approach that is using the definition. Who are the people that want to gather? Where does the activity or work need to be done? So what's the place or space? And what is the program? What will you do? So I just, before we kind of go into a deeper understanding of that, I just want to show you a few of the placemaking programs that What's Up implemented this past year. So this is the Rutherford parking ramp. It's typically for cars, but it's also a great place to hold exercise classes. So given the kind of inconsistency in weather, we did outdoor exercise classes out of the Rutherford ramp that sold out regularly. So that's what you're seeing here. We put a DJ and we throw what's called a fitness party and just make it really fun and exciting to exercise in downtown Flint. This is a similar flavor activity. This is Brush Park, one of the spaces I'm responsible for activating. Very similar. So there's a local company called Curvy Girl Fitness, and she brought her and her community downtown 9 a.m. on Saturdays throughout the late summer and early fall to do step classes. So that was able to be socially distanced, outdoors, and a great use of public space. Another good example are the alleys. So this is an older photograph of a section off of Brush Alley. On the left, you see a group of local artists and photographers and just community residents imagining what the space could be. On the right-hand side, you see the implementation of that. So they decided the people would be the artists and musicians of Flint, the place would be Brush Alley, and the program would be an art show, an outdoor art show. And that's a really great example because similar to the riverfront revitalization project I showed you that I did in Binghamton, the residual impact of this work can be really can be highly impactful. So that kind of enlightened minds. They really saw how it was a great use of space. And very shortly after that event, we got a small grant to make the space more conducive to gathering. So what you see here is a modern photo of that space. It's got new pea gravel laid. We put a mural to make the space really bright and vibrant, ran electricity down the side, and we'll be installing a stage as well. So what's really great about placemaking is the actual process of it and the residual work. Here's one last example before I get into what I think is one of the best programs that we did last summer. This is the old farmers market parking lot. So yes, it's an old space, not currently being used. Some could just see it as a parking lot. The residents that came to me with ideas saw it as what you're looking at on the left, a great place to bring kids together to learn how to decorate their bike and go on a bike ride together. And on the right-hand side are drive-in jazz shows that we did that also came about from the placemaking process during the pandemic. So again, just a great use of space, great use of pairing people with a space and a program. And then we also did walking tours of the murals. So this was really great for outdoor socially distant small groups. We did them in groups of 10. And essentially they go on a 2-hour tour with me from one end of downtown to the other. And they learn about the stories behind the Flint murals, the artists and how they're connected to Flint or why they painted what they did, wrapped into a larger storytelling of kind of the global art movement of murals and its relationship to Flint. I know oftentimes people ask how I discovered Flint or came to be or am connected to Flint. I don't have family or anything here, but your mural program is being talked about around the world. And when I was living in Europe, I heard about it and became very closely involved with your mural project. And then this is a section of Riverbank Park that last summer residents came forward and expressed interest in
Is it my play?
bringing back to life. So you just see some process shots of them unweeding and getting the flower donations installed there along Riverbank Park. So it doesn't all have to be concerts and entertainment. It can certainly just be hands-on, dig in the dirt, get together and improve a space. And then this was kind of an unusual event I wouldn't normally have put on under the What's Up Downtown project, but given the impact of the pandemic, was a really interesting pivot, and something I really want to give details to you about Porch Fest. So Porch Fest is a placemaking tool, if you will. They happen throughout the nation and actually a little bit outside of the US. And it's when you take a street or a neighborhood and you celebrate it. So you celebrate who's in it or what its essence and character is by bringing that talent, that essence out onto the porches, into the sidewalks and yards of a street or neighborhood. So what you're looking at here was the first Porch Fest here in Flint last June. It was held on West First Ave, and residents came together along that street to identify porches to have concerts on and activities to be done to retrofit the vacant lots and abandoned houses. So here are some photos from that. You can see people sitting in chairs, enjoying concerts from porches. We took one of the vacant lots and made it like a poet for hire. So you could go up to a poet with a typewriter and have one written for you. We had some chalk art for kids. We just kind of took that whole street property by property and programmed it. If it was an abandoned house, we hung art on it and made it a visual art exhibit. So all of the kind of spaces along that corridor was activated. And it's a great model because it can happen in any street in any neighborhood. So actually, that was such a successful model that there's demand to bring that same setup to other streets and neighborhoods in the city of Flint. So just this morning, we've kind of begin to do some outreach to identify five based on some criteria that I'll show you on the next slide, places that make sense to bring this Porch Fest to. What streets in the city of Flint, what neighborhood would this work well in? And so this just started today. We have an overwhelming response and interest to bring this program into the neighborhoods and celebrate what makes that space special, unique, what musicians or artists are living nearby, what makers and entrepreneurs can help activate a city street. So, like I said, this was just announced today. We do have overwhelming response. And the Porch Fest is a really important event in terms of its process. So the only way that it works is if there's at least 2 lead residents on the street or in the neighborhood who are going to help the neighbors make a lot of decisions, starting with which porches are available for concerts, which properties in the surrounding areas are available to activate with children's activities or wellness classes, or as you see in Carriagetown, they chose Poet for Hire. They made one of their vacant lots a picnic area. So to really make this work, it's got to be citizen driven, resident driven, and all the decisions need to be made in conjunction with neighbors. So the type of music they get to choose, the type of activities are all choices that are a reflection of the street or the neighborhood's character. So I'm really excited to watch that program grow and expand throughout the city. So that kind of wraps up what I have presented for you guys today in terms of just defining what placemaking is, showing you some past examples, some recent examples, and have you begin to think about other ways that you can placemake your street or your neighborhood. For me at the What's Up Downtown project, we just launched a crowdfund campaign. I know oftentimes a big question to come from this is, all right, we have the people, we have the place, we know what we want to do, but how are we going to pay for it? I decided to teach crowdfunding via a real world placemaking project. So we're in the middle of that now. That crowdfund's really interesting because it's going to result in 10 really interesting programs in the public spaces in downtown. So that's what we're up to next. Other than that, I put a couple of slides here for you guys to stay connected. We are on Facebook and Instagram and also have a website, whatsup-downtown.com. On that website, we have that community calendar I was telling you I'm responsible for. So if you're ever wondering what's up downtown or what's going on in your city center, it's all listed there. Additionally, um, I put a lot of great content on Facebook and Instagram. So if you're ever looking to book one of the walking tours or you're looking for something safe, friendly, healthy to do, that calendar is there for you. And the Instagram and social media are daily reminders that there's still a lot to do. I do also promote virtual programming since right now that is often the only choice for individuals. So that's my last slide. I could have sworn I had one in here that said thank you and opening up questions, but I'm happy to take questions before we go into the breakout session. Oh, there it is. Yeah.
Katie, I just had two questions for you that came through. Mark Baldwin wants to know, so access to parks and public spaces is very difficult in Flint due to the lack of sidewalks. Is this something that is addressed in the placemaking, with placemaking? And then the other question that he had was basically, how do you get your ideas? Do you come up with the ideas or do you work with folks on these ideas?
Yeah. Thanks so much, Mark. So I'm going to answer your second question first. Where do these ideas come from? So for the placemaking project that I'm here leading, I insist that it's citizen driven or what is called resident led. So I don't think it's best to serve a community by me coming in and programming all the spaces in ways that I would use them or in ways I think that other people would use them. Oftentimes there's a disconnect then between that really beautiful process that happens when people are really engaged and then ownership, a sense of ownership takes place, and then either physical transformation like we saw in the alley project I showed you, or you just see a more use of space. So all of the ideas that you've seen are coming from Flint residents or area residents. For example, the Porch Fest was inspired by the Porch Project. Megan Hazel lived on that street. She had been wanting to introduce porch concerts. And so it made sense to begin to bring that idea to life. Same with the exercise classes. I would never sign up to exercise at 9 a.m. on a Saturday. And so it's really important that Molly Baskins from Curvy Girls said that's what something that her and her community would like. And we help make that happen. So all of the ideas that you see in those various pop-up examples, if you go back to our social media, you'll see more of our programming. Those are all being decided on by the residents. And I insist on that. So I hope that answers the question. If you're wondering how do you get your idea heard, on the website, there's a Get Involved tab. So what'sup-downtown.com. If you have an idea on how you want to program one of the public spaces in your city center, just fill out that form. It's super short and easy. If you're not technologically savvy or you don't want to fill out any more forms, I'm very available via email or via phone. Happy to have discussions with the residents. And then the second question is a really interesting one. So what if there's a barrier to access to the space? Does placemaking address that? So typically at the neighborhood level, it does. I'm not familiar with all of the resources available, but in particular with sidewalks, I know that I see on social media, there's a program now where you can sign up for sidewalk repairs. And so it's not part of the process of the downtown placemaking because the spaces that I'm activating are pretty accessible. They're in pretty good shape. So it's nothing I need to address. But with your public parks and spaces, that will be part of the placemaking process, and there are resources available to you to address that. So it's not, it's kind of a general answer, and I hope that that helps.
And Katie, I guess just to kind of build off of that a little bit, Mark, the active communities team at the CRIM, we've been doing accessibility, basically doing some placemaking assessments around the spaces that people are doing projects in so that we can kind of help identify what are the challenges. And I know you worked with us before on something like that. So we're hoping to do more of that this year. And then we did have two more questions. And then after we do those two questions, we'll be sending you guys to breakout groups since it's 7:40. Laura had a question and wanted to know, will you be doing walking tours again?
Yes, we're doing walking tours. I'm just trying to figure out the best platform to book them. But yes, we're doing walking tours. I can tell you if you can get a group of 10 or less together, you can just privately book one with me as well. I like to do them on evenings and weekends so it doesn't interfere with my 9 to 5. But yes, they will be offered regularly, and I'm happy to do them now if you want to privately book.
Great. And then Marquita from Harambe Wellness would like to know, can downtown spaces be used without going through what's up downtown project?
So part of my position that's a complicated answer, Marquita, and we can talk more offline. Essentially, it's difficult to maneuver. The spaces are all managed by different entities who manage them, keep them clean and safe, and who permit them. And so, of course, it's your city. Feel free to begin to navigate that process. But my position is here to help you through that process. So if you're finding barriers or walls that you're hitting to bring your event or activity into downtown, I'm a resource to you. But certainly, you do not need me to book Brush Park. You do not need me to book Riverbank Park. I'm just here to help so you don't get frustrated by the current process.
Great. Well, thank you so much. From any of our planning team, is there anything else before I start working on the breakout groups?
No, I think we should probably, Teresa, stick it to, and Katie, if you feel like this will work, stick it to 10 minutes so that we have a little bit of time at the end to wrap up and do post questions and we don't get, caught right at that 8 o'clock timeline.
Yeah, that's fine. It's not a long activity. It's really just meant to kind of have the concepts that were just presented stick and just get gears turning. Yeah, no problem.
Okay, I am making sure that the all of the facilitators are in breakout rooms with folks. Let me just redo this. Okay. Recreate. Okay, I am moving all of the facilitators into a breakout room. So each group you'll have a facilitator. You'll have somebody from the planning team, or you'll have Katie. And I am trying to move some of you right now, and I'm having some issues. There we go. It's having some challenges just moving people. Alrighty. I think that you guys should be all set. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to send you to breakout rooms. Facilitators, if you end up in a room with two of you, don't worry. I am I'm going to be moving some of you. So if you somehow end up in the same room as another facilitator, um, don't worry. I'll get you to the right place if you do. All right, I'll see you guys in a little bit.
Thank you.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the lobby. Thank you for taking some time out to join us this evening. Does anybody have any reflections or questions that came up in their breakout session that they want to discuss before we dive into our post questions for this evening?
Yes, we had major problems, but we had great discussions.
Awesome.
I believe it went the way it's supposed to go because there's going to be an event over at Fleming Park and we're all going to attend.
Woo-hoo! I'm looking forward to that. Awesome. Yeah,
So,
sometimes when things don't work out the way that they're supposed to, that's when we have the best conversations and really get things rolling, right? So that's awesome, Karma. I'm looking forward to hearing more about your discussion.
Ashley, we were talking in our group about the need for a specific website, like uh, where all the events that are going on in the city of Flint in the different neighborhoods can be listed like on a calendar so people can see what's coming up and they can attend various events. I know that FNU and the NEH try very hard to get information about these events out to everybody, but it would be kind of nice if we had a specific site to go to.
I know
oh,
that's a really fantastic idea, and I am going to say to Michael right now that maybe that's something that we discuss with our MSU interns this summer. So I think you got popped off, Michael, and then came back on. Edna suggested having like a universal calendar for neighborhood and community events. And Michael looks like he can't hear me. I will talk to Michael about this later.
I think it's a really good idea.
The
Try-
only problem is managing it. So being able to like have the ability to continue to review the content to make sure that people aren't putting like silly nefarious things on there, while also making sure that we have the ability, so managing the content and making sure that people don't have put silly nefarious things on there, and then also like sharing out that it exists, so figuring out a way to manage it in an open source way but also giving some moderation. um but I think that we can work through that. And I will talk to Michael offline about having the interns kind of think through what that might look like.
That's a cool idea. Maybe you even, I'm just gonna offer this up, a lot of the agencies that work with a lot of the groups like the CRIM have AmeriCorps members. And I think that would be a really cool job for one of the AmeriCorps members on my team to help with something like that. Like Leah's like, yeah.
Yeah, so Teresa and Michael and I should have a conversation offline about pairing an AmeriCorps member and our internship program and working on putting something together.
Michael, are you able to hear us now?
Yeah, sorry, I've been having Zoom difficulty all night, so I apologize for that. I wanted to share something that Liddell brought up, which is that sorry, I just Zoom is being very annoying to me. So the dispensaries around town actually are mandated to have some sort of a community benefit, which means that they are obligated to assist in things like community projects, things like block parties or potentially porch fests. And it sounds like not a lot of them are being taken up on that offer. So I just wanted to throw that out as something that folks might investigate.
Yeah, good point, Michael.
Is that
All
all
right,
of the
everybody.
dispensaries?
I'm sorry.
I believe it's ones that were opened in the last 9 to 12 months or fall under this ordinance. I think that's the
Okay.
time frame. Yeah.
I'll blab it. Okay, thank you.
I believe
Uh,
Charlotte has a question.
yes. Actually, I thought that was a great idea for the director or the calendar. I do know in the past that I've advertised things on Eventbrite, and then somehow it ended up in a Flint calendar. I'm not sure. I can't remember. It was our first fundraiser a couple years back, and somehow if you just post your things on Eventbrite, it can be free, and then people purchase tickets for free, and it shows up somewhere in the Flint directory. I do know that for events that's happening during the months. Have you guys ever experienced that?
No, we'll have to look into it some more. But
Oh,
and I apologize, but in the interest of time, I know that we kept you all late on Monday, so I want to make sure to be thoughtful about everybody's time. Michael, if you could bring up our post questions really quickly so that we can respond to those and we can continue our discussion, but just want to get those post questions up, please. If you're able to do that. If you're not able to do that, text
You're not,
Teresa.
and you're on mute.
I'm so sorry, guys. I am having real problems with this.
That's okay.
we-
Vanessa posted GeneseeFun.com, which is a location, a site that we can go to. They do have a calendar. I've gone there quite often to find out what's going on for the kids. And they have a lot of information, and we may be also able to get our information to them to share. And if we start to share their calendar, then others will start to share it. That's how that goes. And I do have a question for Katie. I do not see your contact information in here lately. Can we get your contact information back in there so that people can connect with you for that porch project? Because I could, oh goodness, something happened. Because I could think of a lot of neighborhoods that I'd like to see that happen in.
So I put my email and my direct work cell phone number in the chat. Feel
So
free to reach out.
Teresa, I'm sorry, it's not going to work from your computer. Can you make me host again so that I can share mine?
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I
So
see it there.
let me just throw this out there to the planning team. It's been 5 weeks. We were bound to have tech issues at some point. So
Yeah,
we made it 5 weeks.
we did good. We did good. Flint River Watershed Coalition. Oh, thank you, Dominique. Thank you.
Okay. And here we go. So our post workshop evaluation. Do you know how to implement placemaking projects in your neighborhood? If definitely yes, that is letter A. Mostly is letter B. Not sure is C. Mostly not is D. And definitely not is E. Looks like we are feeling much more confident than before. So that's great.
I think we realized that we really did know what we were doing. We just didn't know the name of it.
Yeah. This isn't new stuff.
Right.
All right. And then our next question, I know the 3 elements of placemaking. Definitely yes is A, mostly yes is B, not sure is C, mostly not is D, and definitely not is E. And again, looks like we
Oh,
Nice. That's a lot better than where we
Yeah.
started.
yeah.
Awesome. Cool. Well, I will leave this
Awesome.
open if anybody hasn't made it yet, but otherwise, Ashley, go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to ask Katie if you had any, last minute reflections or thoughts that you wanted to share before we close up tonight.
No, I didn't. The only thing that didn't come up except for in our breakout was the bit about who pays for it or what does it cost or where do funds come from. And the city of Flint is very robust in things like neighborhood small grants. And so don't let that be a barrier to you. Just ask around. The resources are there and there's lots of folks around to help. So that's all. Just thank you guys so much for giving me an hour of your evening to share with something you probably already know about and have done a lot of work to make your own neighborhoods and streets, and just keep up the good work, and I'll see you soon.
And reach out to those partners, those organizations that are out there, those nonprofits, and ask them, hey, I want to do an event, I want to do a project. You have
Neighborhood Engagement Hub, Keep Genesee Community Beautiful, Crim Foundation, Crim Fitness Foundation. I'm learning, Teresa.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining us. This is the 5th week of Neighbors Changing Flint. We hope to see you for the final week next week. Monday, we'll be talking about, so next week, we're going to be talking about advocacy and policy. So we hope to see you there.